We are making a beautiful roast that would be perfect for your holiday table and it won't break the bank. Today I'm going to show you how I take an eye-round roast and I'm going to cook it in a way that I would if I were making like a filet, like say Chateaubriand or a prime rib, except this is like a very economical way of making a roast. And the reason why I wanted to share this video with you is because I know around the holiday season, I myself included for years and years and years have made a filet or a prime rib, but the prices are just so outrageous that I wanted to find an alternative for you and for me that I could serve proudly, that is delicious. It gives you the same feel. We're still gonna make a beautiful sauce and a horseradish cream sauce to go with it, but that was a fraction of the price. And pound per pound at my local grocery store, which is pretty standard in the South Jersey area, it's about $4 a pound for an eye roast, an eye round, versus $17 to $19 a pound for a prime rib. Now you're not gonna slice this into big giant slabs and serve it as though it was prime rib. We're not gonna try and do that. We are just gonna make it shine on its own. And it's just a delicious roast beef that you can make either for a holiday or for just any day at all. And if you wanna make double and take one and slice it really thin and pop it in the fridge, it makes for fantastic roast beef sandwiches. So let's get started. I'm one that prefers working with smaller roasts. So this is about a 3-pound roast. And I want you to keep in mind, it's quite lean. There's not a lot of fat going on. And it's the kind of meat that, it's a kind of cut that you would usually use to slow cook or braise, but we are going to cook it to a medium rare perfection and it is just fantastic. But we are gonna do a few things to sort of ensure that it's gonna have a great flavor and it becomes just succulent and delicious. They, at least not in my local grocery store, I can't find these in really big sizes. So about, I would say a 3-pound will feed 4 people very nicely with leftovers, because again, you're gonna slice this really thinly. So if you were to do, say you have, 8 to 12 people, just instead of trying to find one that's 6 pounds, just use like 2 to 3 pounds. So just much easier to cook without risking overcooking it so much that it dries out and it becomes really tough. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna treat this very simply, just like I would any sort of prime rib or, like I said, beef tenderloin. I'm gonna go garlic and rosemary because to me that's festive, that's holiday, and that's a flavor profile that most people really enjoy. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna come in here. If your roast has a really thick fat cap, I would remove it. Mine does not. I also want you to keep in mind, you can see about a little more than 3/4 of the roast is about one thickness and the very tail end is much thinner. So you're gonna have to keep in mind that this tail end here will be cooked at a higher temperature. Like this will end up being medium to medium well, while the rest of the roast is about a medium to medium rare. So keep that in mind. It's fine, but something to note. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna take a really sharp knife, make a long slit like that, and I'm gonna take a very thin sliver of garlic, not a clove of garlic. I literally take a clove of garlic and I slice it super, super thin. And then that way I can just stuff it all in there. Just give yourself some room with your slits. Don't make them too small. And I'm just gonna literally come in here and do this all over. Roast is done. Now what I like to do, just like I would any other roast, I like to tie it because it kind of just helps keep its form, keep its shape, cooks more evenly. It just, to me, makes a big difference. Don't tighten it too much because it will actually like kind of deform it a bit and that's not pleasant to look at. But I just give it like, just a few ties. And for the stuffing of the garlic and the rosemary, I just go to the top and then the very sides. I don't do the bottom. You don't need to do the bottom. So just give this a nice, gentle little tie. And then I'm gonna cut off the excess and place it in a large resealable bag. I'm not going to heavily salt and pepper this right now because you'll see we're gonna be doing that later. Something that I think is worth doing to this cut of meat is giving it some time with some fat and some acid to tenderize it, sort of give it a nice marinade so that the fat and acid can permeate through, especially through those slits, and provide moisture to keep it nice and moist, and provide acid to tenderize the actual meat itself. And I do that by mixing together some white wine and some olive oil. You don't need much. You're gonna need about a 1/4 cup of white wine, a 1/4 cup of olive oil, and just a small pinch of salt. And the salt in this particular instance, I'm only using a little bit. And what the salt does here is it sort of melts into that wine and olive oil and permeates through those slits, making sure to really season the meat from the inside. But we are going to encrust this with a glorious amount of salt and pepper later when we go to cook it. You're going to want to give this a minimum of about 2 hours, or up to, I would say, no longer than really 8, because that acid starts to like almost cook the outside of the beef, and you don't want carpaccio here. We want, you know, nice roast. So mix that together. It may look simple, but it makes a world of a difference. Pour that in there. I just have a little bit of garlic left over and a few pieces of rosemary that I had already touched. So might as well just add those right in. Make sure you seal it without any air. And then what I like to do, because I like to just give you as many tips as I can to make sure that your roast comes out really great. You see how the marinade is sitting on the bottom? Well, there are no slits on the bottom, okay? So what I do is I like to just turn this upside down so that the marinade is literally seeping right in those little slits. And then every half hour or so, or every hour, depending on how long you have it in the fridge, just give it a little mix. Just flip it around so that it gets evenly marinated and delicious. I'm gonna let this go for a few hours and then I'll show you the cooking process. Okay. This was in the fridge for, I would say, a total of about 5 hours. It looks great. Now, you want to make sure you pat this dry really, really well, because, you know, it's not going to sear. Otherwise, it's going to just steam. It won't sear. So just take your time to make sure you pat it off really, really well. You don't want excess moisture, because moisture is a playground for steam, but not sear, and that's not what we want. We want a beautiful, gorgeous roast. So now you're gonna wanna season this really, really well. Before I do that, I use a cast iron skillet for this because I wanna sear it on my stovetop, and I wanna finish cooking it into the oven, which, by the way, you want your oven temperature to be preheated at this point to 350. I wanna sear it really, really well. I don't like a gray meat, okay? I want really beautiful flavor, and then whatever's left over at the bottom of that skillet, we're gonna make a great red wine pan sauce that is to die for. And it's the kind of sauce that it goes well with pretty much any cut of meat that you're gonna sear. It's fantastic. Now, you know my deal. When I like to season something that's like a cylinder shape, season your board, or in this case, your plate, really, really well. I'm gonna show you. You can season one side, and you're gonna just roll it around. Lots of pepper. Turn it. See? Look at that beautifulness. I always say, if you season your plate really well, you can season your roast a whole lot easier. Like that. All sides. See? Even and gorgeous. Now, you're gonna wanna make sure that your pan is a pan that can go from stovetop to oven, because otherwise you're gonna have to take this out and put it on a separate baking sheet to pop it into the oven to continue it cooking all the way through. Speaking of cooking, this is the kind of meat that you really don't wanna cook above medium rare. So I'm actually gonna pull it out of the oven at an internal temperature of 130. Remember what I told you earlier, since it's not an even shape and about 3/4 of the roast is substantially bigger than the other, your end cut here is going to be cooked at a higher temperature. So this will be about medium well versus sort of a medium rare for the rest of the roast. It's fine. It's just as delicious. You're going to cut it really, really thin. It's going to still melt in your mouth. It's still going to be delicious. And it may be a great option if you have a couple people in your family that like their meat a little bit more well done, like a little bit more cooked. I would not take this out any later than about 130, because otherwise you're going to run the risk of overcooking it as it sits and those juices redistribute, and then that's when you're gonna get a really tough cut of meat, which was not what we're after here. So my skillet is really nice and hot. I'm gonna add it all right in, and I'm gonna let it sear on all sides until it's deeply golden brown. You can see it's beautifully seared. Don't forget the very front end. I'm gonna pop this into the oven. Now, if you have a probe thermometer, mine is broken, so I can't use it. It's really kind of great because you can So basically you stick it in there, right? Pretend mine was not broken, okay? We've used it together before. And you can set the internal temperature that you want your beef to be at when you pull it out. Say I like it at 130, I will set it on my thermometer, and then your thermometer will beep when it's ready for you to pull it out, so there's no guessing game. Mine is broken, but I've done this so many times, I already know that this baby at 350 for a 3-pounder is gonna take about 45 minutes, almost to the dot. So I'll check it around 35 minutes to make sure I'm getting close. I don't want to cook it too long, but this will take about 40 to 45 minutes, and then I'm going to let it sit and kind of rest, and that's when we'll make our pan sauce, because we want all the drippings from the beef to make our pan sauce. I'm going to pop this in, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. My roast was in the oven for exactly 45 minutes on the dot. I took my skillet out. I've obviously taken the roast out to rest. I've added a little bit of butter to the bottom of the skillet because this is going to be your foundation for a really good red wine pan sauce. And honestly, this is the kind of sauce that goes pretty much amazing with any seared steak. One of the things that makes it so delicious is all that flavor at the bottom of your skillet. So if you are doing just a simple seared steak on a busy weeknight, also make the sauce because it just goes so well with it. And while those onions, which technically they should be shallots, I don't have any, and I didn't think to pick any up, but it's fine. We're gonna use a little bit of a onion, it's gonna do the job just fine. While those sort of soften for a bit, we're gonna make the horseradish sour cream, which to me, if we are gonna be talking roast, you need horseradish sour cream. I don't make the rules. The food police make the rules, and I just follow them, okay? You just have to have it. Make sure you get prepared horseradish. Also be careful with how much you add because it is pretty strong. I love horseradish. I like a lot of horseradish. I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon, and I'm gonna go ahead and mix it in with just a small pinch of salt and just taste it and see how I'm liking it. If it's too weak, we add a little bit more. Definitely need another tablespoon. I'm gonna go with 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna also stir in lots of chopped chives because to me, that just makes it so delicious. Sour cream is pretty tangy, so I'm not gonna add any acid. Listen, call me crazy, but I've told you, I like a lot of sour cream. I don't like it weak. I'm gonna go ahead and chop lots of chives. Did I say shallots? I can't even remember. I'm gonna go ahead and add them right in and then set that aside because that needs nothing else except to sit and marinate. The onions are looking great. The pan sauce takes minutes to make. Literally, it's just about reduction and intensifying like that sauce with all those delicious flavors at the bottom of your skillet. So this is great. Oh yeah, that I love. I can definitely taste it now. Deglaze with your wine. Let that reduce, which will not take very long. And your pan sauce should be really rich and delicious. Let that reduce just a bit, about a couple minutes. You want it to reduce by half. Add in your beef stock. And this is gonna reduce by half. So let that go, it'll thicken, it will reduce, it'll do really beautiful, wonderful things. In the meantime, get a platter together, whatever you are serving this on. Just get all of your moving parts ready. Like I've got my little gravy crock situation for my pan sauce. I've got my sour cream, which I'm gonna leave in that because it's cute and adorable. I'm gonna get a plastic cutting board because I don't like to cut my meat on wood because you know wood is porous. It's gonna just soak in all of that juice and I can't clean in that wood, so it's a no for me. So I'm gonna grab my plastic cutting board and get that ready. The pan sauce is looking great. 9 times out of 10, you won't need to salt this kind of sauce because you've got all those salty bits from the bottom of your pan. Yup, and that beef stock is a little bit salty, so it needs no additional salt. But I'm gonna keep my eye on this. I want it to reduce by half and thicken, and then we're gonna finish it. Add just a dab of cold butter once it's reduced. You can see it's really nice and glossy, and let that just boil for about a minute. In the meantime, we need to start carving If you are someone that gets squeamish about medium rare meat, turn away now. If you're an adult, welcome. I know what to tell you, okay? It's also gonna be very moist. And if that offends you, again, I don't know what to tell you. All those beautiful juices belong in your pan sauce because that is where you're gonna get all that really rich flavor. I want my pan because my pan handle is still really, really hot. I'm just gonna let that continue to bubble away for just a few more seconds. And in the meantime, we are gonna start slicing. Now, like I've told you earlier, this is not, a big hunk of meat. This is thin slices. Think roast beef, which by the way, leftovers are fantastic on a roast beef sandwich, okay? Turn this around, get a really sharp knife. Now, like I've told you, the very front are gonna be more cooked, obviously, but look how tender, look how beautiful. Carried over cooking a little more than I wanted it to because it was resting for a while, but as we get to the center, it'll get more and more pink. But it's really nice. It's perfect. That is pretty perfect. There's a lot of good juices here, which I'm gonna pour into my pan sauce because again, I want all that beautiful flavor. Now, I will be honest with you, I let it carry over just a little bit too long because it was resting covered for a little too long, but it is perfect. You can see it's still perfectly pink in the center. Let me grab the sauce. Oh, that's nice. Put it in my little crock. Beauty mess. I get all the onions out in a second, but that is perfection. Like I said, it's gonna be thin, it's beautiful, look at that. I mean, it's just, look at how tender. You can see that garlic and the rosemary running through. It's pretty perfect. It'll be great on your holiday table. It'll be fantastic on your everyday table, wherever you're serving this. Trust me when I tell you, it will be loved by all, loved by your wallet and your sanity, because you can still put together a beautiful roast for a holiday at a fraction of the price of what it would cost to do something like a prime rib or a filet. So go to laurainthekitchen.com for the full written recipe. I'll make sure to write for you the cooking temperatures as well. Hope you enjoy spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.